Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Shake my hand and welcome to another podcast reading. This is episode 36, book number 5, Think Yourself Rich by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I'm sure you now know by now, and if you don't know, real quick, this is the podcast where we read good books about finance, personal development, not the summary, not the anecdotes, page by page, word for word, so we can extract the information, because you only know what you know, and you only operate at the level of which you know. So to become more, to get more, you need to know more. And that starts by reading, like a habit of reading, a culture of reading. And we're dealing with the subconscious mind. We're dealing with, how do we get about the right mindset to become people worthy of wealth, right? So today there are no long introductions, right? The podcast is back full swing, Mondays to Fridays. I will be continuing from chapter 4 of this amazing book. This is book number 5 in the podcast. Please check out the other episodes, the other books, right? You're 35 episodes behind if you're joining us today. You're welcome, but please do go back and read The Science of Getting Rich, The Richest Man of Babylon, Happy Money by Ken Honda, How to Attract Money by Dr. Murphy, and of course right now we're doing Think Yourself Rich, right? And don't forget to share, like, subscribe. This is a good gift to give to someone. This link to tell people, hey, watch this, this might bless your life. It's an incredible gift to give out. Right, so chapter 4, how to claim your right to infinite riches now. How to claim your right to infinite riches right now. Now, a few years ago, during the month of May, I took a trip to Ireland, England, and Switzerland. While in Ireland, I went to, it's Killarney, to visit a relative of mine. Killarney is one of the world's great beauty spots. For centuries, poets, artists, writers had struggled to capture the magnificent varied colors and forms of this wonderful green mountains and crystal lakes surrounded by the luxurious wood of birch, oak, and arbutus. It was here, amidst the beauty of the countryside, that my relative poured out his tale of woe regarding his daughter. Mary, not her real name, was rapidly losing weight. She had refused to eat except under the pressure from her father. The local doctor had been giving her injections of liver and vitamins, but now she said she was a hopeless case. When she was taken to Dublin to see a psychiatrist, she refused to talk to him. Her father was frantic. I had 3 long talks with Mary. During the third one, we were sitting on a stone wall with a view of a distant lake when I asked her to point blank, Mary, are you trying to get even with your father, exerting a sort of revenge because he prefers your brother to you? She stared at me with stricken eyes, then blurted out, I hate him. He won't hear a word against Sean, whom takes himself off to Dublin and a fine life at the university. It's I that stays home and keeps the house, but it's never a kind word I hear. Only, why did you not do this way instead? You'll be a sorry man when I'm gone. But Mary, I said gently, God intended you to lead a full, happy, rich life. Your body is a temple of the living God. When you refuse to take care of it, that is worse than setting fire to a church. I did never dream of such a thing, she protested. Maybe not, but you're doing it, I replied. When you refuse to eat, you're destroying your body. There is no difference between that and suicide. Is that really what you want? She shook her head and she turned away, and I saw that her eyes were filled with tears. Next subheading. Her father saw his sad mistake. I went inside and spoke privately with Mary's father. I told him what she said. His face turned red and he began to curse. He shouted that he worked his whole life to support an ungrateful child who had been abandoned since the day of her birth. Why do you say that? I asked when he stopped to take a breath. He stared at me as if he did not recall who I was or what I was doing there. She killed my Kate, he said in a flat voice. I have not had a moment of peace or joy since then, nor will I until I'm in a church hut lay next to Kate one more. May the day come soon. I recalled that Kate was the name of his wife who had died in childbirth. I understood the sad story. He had acted out since then, blaming a helpless child for this terrible loss. Now he was in danger of another loss that would be even worse because it was so unnecessary. What do you think Kate would say? I asked him. If she knew that you hate the child she brought into the world, that your hatred may kill Mary, would she approve? Would she think that was proper way to honor her memory? For a moment he clenched his fist, as if he thought striking me would relieve his own distress. Then he buried his face in his hand and started to sob. Through his tears he said, "It is not that I have no tenderness for Mary at all. There are moments when I see her mother in her face and it breaks my heart. But when I thought of showing it, it was as if I did be betraying Kate." "Not betraying," I said, "glorifying, honoring her mother in her and the internal in Mary, Kate, and all of us." When I brought Mary in, her father apologized to her and asked for forgiveness. He vowed his love, appreciation, and tenderness for her. She was naturally hesitant to believe that he had changed so much, but as he continued to exude and affirm real love for her, he poured forth the riches of the infinite, and she softened to him. Mary had been silently saying to herself, "I feel I must starve and die. Nobody loves me. This way, I will make my father care for me." Now, with her father's love, she was able to experience her love for herself as well. That evening, I was delighted to see her eat a hearty dinner. Love frees, it gives, it is the Spirit of God. Love opens prison doors and sets free captives and all those bound by fear, resentment, and hostility. Now, the prayer that changed her life. I know my body is the temple where God dwells. I honor and exalt the divine presence within me. Divine love fills my soul, and his river of peace flows through my mind and heart all times. I eat my food with joy, knowing that it is transmuted into beauty, harmony, wholeness, and perfection. I know God hath need of me where I am, and I am divinely expressed. I am loved, I am needed, I am wanted and appreciated by my Father and others. I radiate love, peace, and goodwill to everyone at all times. My food and drink are God's ideas that unfold within me, making me strong, wholesome, and full of divine energy. Mary is now saturating her subconscious mind with these truths several times a day, and in the last letter I received from her, she told me she's engaged to marry a neighbor, a young farmer with ambitious ideas. Her words bubbled over with new life, inner joy, and she has truly experienced the riches of the infinite as love, marriage, inner peace, and abundance. Next subheading, the riches of faith in a higher power. After leaving my Irish relatives, I asked my driver to go by the way of Glendalough, the Glen of the Two Lakes. Here, in the 6th century, St. Kevin founded a monastery, and his shrine is visited by people hoping for a cure of various diseases. My driver told me that as far back as he could remember, he had started badly in school, and other kids had made fun of him and called him Stutz. Consultations with the finest speech therapists and psychologists in Dublin and Cork City had brought no relief. Then when I was 8, he continued, my dad took me to Glenroe. He put me in a very cell where St. Kevin stayed and told me, sleep here for an hour and you'll surely wake up healed. Fascinated, I asked, what happened? Surely I knew my dad would never lie to me. He replied, I did as he said. I went to sleep there in the cell, and when I woke up, I was healed. Never a bit have I stuttered from that day since. The real reason for his cure. I did not disturb this young man's blind faith because it was that which had activated and released the healing power of his subconscious mind. The boy's mind at that age of 8 was highly impressionable. His imagination was fired by the thought of a miraculous cure. When he was given an unusual ritual to follow, his expectancy was undoubtedly 100% that St. Kevin would intercede for him. It was done unto him as he believed. There is only one healing power, and that is the infinite healing presence lodged in your subconscious mind. Now, the riches of true faith versus blind faith. True faith consists of knowing that the infinite presence that created you from a cell knows all the process and functions of your body, and certainly knows how to heal you when you consciously tune into the healing power of your subconscious. Knowing and believing it will respond to you. You will get results. In other words, true faith is the combined use of your conscious and subconscious mind, scientifically directed by specific purpose. Blind faith consists of the belief in amulets, charms, talisman, bones of saints, shrines, healing waters, and so on. In other words, it is faith without understanding. As a result, its therapeutic value is often only temporary. I urge people who are sick to seek the help of a physician and to keep on praying, not only for themselves, but also for the physician. Honor a physician with the honor due unto him, for the uses which he may have of him, for the Lord hath created him. That's in Ecclesiastes 6:38. For the Most High cometh healing, and he shall receive honor of the king. The Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not harbor them. He hath given me skill, that he might be honored to his marvelous works. My son, in thy sickness be not negligent, but pray unto the Lord, and he will make thee whole. Then give place to the physician, for the Lord hath created him. Let him not go from thee, for thou hast need for him. There is a time when in their hands there is good success, for they shall also pray unto the Lord, and that he will prosper that which they give for ease and remedy for prolonged life. Now, when you pray for health, then health should spring forth speedily. If it does not, you should take action immediately by going to a medical doctor, dentist, chiropractor, or surgeon as seems most appropriate to you. Remember, if you're always walking in the consciousness of God's love and peace, you would never be ill, but all of us fall short from time to time. If your teeth are bad and your faith does not heal them, I suggest you go immediately to a dentist, right? Use common sense. Pray that God is guiding him or her, and that divine law and order reign supreme in your life, and you'll be satisfied with the new bridge work. Now, why did he not experience the healing riches of the infinite? That's the next subheading. A friend of mine in Waterford arranged for me to tour the Waterford glass factory, where the legendary crystals is made. It was an inspiration to watch the skilled craftspeople making raw glass boom into the depths pop. One of the workers held up a vase he was working on, catching the light on the cut crystal. Then the real glory of its facets, diamonds, flaunches, and ovals shone forth in a spectrum of indescribable beauty. I noticed that Roger was walking with great difficulty with the help of a cane. I asked him if he was getting proper medical treatment for his condition. Oh yes, he replied. I have a regular cortisone injection and I take painkillers every day. They help, of course, but not that much. Tell me, for I know you're an expert on these matters. Last year on a visit to Scotland, I went to a church healing meeting. There was a great crowd there in a state of great excitement. There were cripples who threw away their crutches, people who said they could hear for the first time, even women whose tumor shrank before our eyes. And you, I asked, how were you affected? That's the odd part, he said. When the healer touched me, I felt a strong vibration all through my body for the first time in years. I put down the cane and walked without pain. But the next day, I was lame as ever. Can you explain that? Well, he had a temporary emotional healing. That's the subheading. I think I can, I told Roger. The press of the crowd, the glare of the lights, the music, the chanting, the emotional atmosphere combined to put you in a very susceptible state. When the so-called healer placed his hands on you, he probably manipulated your leg, called on Jesus to heal you, and then told you to rise up and walk. Roger gave me an astonished look. That's exactly the way it was. In the sensitivity state you were in, I continued, your subconscious mind summoned the power to let you walk temporarily without your cane. At the same time, you took in a hypnotic suggestion that blocked the experience of pain for a day. However, hypnotic suggestions in the subconscious soon wear off. And that is what happened to you. Later on in the podcast, we're going to look at Napoleon's Hill theory of auto-suggestion. There's hypnotic suggestion, which is generally because of your environment, right? Because of what someone is saying, because of the successibility of your environment. Like I go to a lot of trading conferences, and there'll be like 1,000 traders in the room, and everyone is just pump. Everybody thinks they're going to make money. And then as soon as people go back to their own corners, their own trading psychology takes over, right? People start losing money, right? And then it goes back to 90% lose, 5 to 10% make money, right? That hypnotic suggestion is always based on a temporary environment, right? But later on, we're going to talk about how do we get our subconscious mind to have an auto-suggestion. An auto-suggestion is an everyday, consistent state of being that actually produces these things. But we got to move with the author at the author's pace. Now, on the road to recovery, Roger began to see that he had not reached the cause of his condition. He began to understand that the true permanent healing comes with forgiveness, love, goodwill to all, and spiritual insight. All these are real healing forces. He admitted he was seething with hostility, guilt, resentment, and hatred toward many people, especially those who were not crippled as he was. He began to realize that his destructive emotions contributed to his condition. I suggest he cooperated with his doctor and pray for him and also bless him, which he promised to do. The prayer that is helping my friend. At Roger's request, I wrote out a prayer for him. I forgive myself for harboring negative, destructive thoughts about myself and others. I think we all need that, right? I fully and freely forgive everyone, and I sincerely wish for them health, happiness, and all the blessings of life. Whenever a person comes into my mind whom I dislike, I will immediately affirm, I have released you, God be with you. I know when I have forgiven others because I will feel no sting in my mind. The infinite healing presence of God flows through me, and his river of peace flows through me. I know that divine love saturates my entire being, and God's love dissolves everything unlike itself. The healing light of God is focused on that point in my mind where the problem is, and it is shattered, making way for the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of wholeness, to indwell every thought, every cell. I give thanks for the healing that is taking place now, for I know all healing is of the Most High. I know God is guiding my doctor, and whatever he does will bless me. He has been reiterating these truths slowly, quietly, and feelingly, morning and night, knowing all the while that the spiritual vibrations will enter into his subconscious, obliterating the negative patterns lodged there years of vicious and destructive thinking. The second letter I received from him said that his physician is amazed with his progress and is planning to refer him to a physical therapist for retaining in walking without a cane. He is well on the road to real spiritual healing, for all healing is of the Most High. I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, how the riches of belief pay dividends in all phases of your life. 5 miles from Cork City is a celebrated landmark, the Barlin Castle. It's the greatest source of fame, is the Barlin Stone, which is set high into the outer wall. Now, according to legend, those who kiss the Barlin Stone become blessed with the gift of gab. Because of this legend, the word Barlin has come to mean pleasing talk, intended to deceive without offending. People come from around the globe to kiss the Barlin Stone. This is not an easy matter. You have to lie on your back, grasp the iron railing, and lean out backwards over the daunting fall, but afterwards you're supposed to develop marvelous powers of speech. While visiting the castle, I fell into a conversation with Father B, an Irish priest. When I thought up the legend of the Barlin Stone, he said, "You mustn't scoff. I have proof of its powers." When I brought up the legend of the Barlin Stone, he said, "You mustn't scoff. I have proof of its powers myself." "Oh," I said, "how's that?" "When I entered priesthood, I was a terrible beau," he confessed. "When I was scheduled to give a sermon, the church would be almost empty. I even began to question my vocation. Then on a visit here, I kissed the stone just for doing it, but afterwards my sermons improved. There are now those kind enough to call me an orator. But that as it may, when I preach, many come to listen. It is just as the gospel says, all things are possible to him that believeth. My geologist will tell you that the block of stone is simply a block of stone. Even if it is part of the wall of a famous castle, it has no power to confer the gift of oratory or eloquence. Even so, kissing it may well have that effect as it did with Father B. How? Well, because our beliefs and expectations stir up the dormant powers in the depths of the subconscious mind. Those powers are always there, waiting to be recognized, utilized. Wherefore, I put thee in remembrance that thou shalt stir up the gift of God within thee. Right? So that's 2 Timothy. I just want to quickly pause here, guys, because I've just been reading and I haven't done much reflection. Right? A couple of things. This are all true stories. Right? This is a clinical psychologist, and he's pretty much, all of Dr. Murphy's book, including his PhD, by the way. I read his PhD. It's brilliant, and maybe we can bring to the podcast towards the end. But all these true stories are reflective of something important, right? There's always something that causes people to believe in something inherently that they need for themselves. And I think the point here, and I think he sums it up in the last verse there, which is, wherefore I put thee in remembrance. So you don't forget that thou shalt stir up the gift of God which is in thee. All right, so he's pretty much bumping into people who are constantly having what he claimed a few pages ago as blind faith. Blind faith is not that you don't truly understand, but because of the nature of that particular thing, particular activity, it's so out of the box. Going to travel to go kiss a stone, sleeping in someone's grave because of mystic powers, all these weird things, going to see a hill line, that environment, all of a sudden you don't feel pain in your leg, all that kind of stuff, right? It's blind faith. It's got temporary measures because you don't fully understand what's going on. And he keeps guiding us. Earlier on, he did bring up that the better type of understanding, the better type of belief system is when you're consciously understanding and completely aware of what's going on. And the point here of what you need to be conscious of, that in all these stories, these people got what they wanted, not fully understanding how they did it, right? They kept activating, and I'll read, the powers were always here, waiting to be recognized and utilized, because our beliefs and expectancies stir up dominant powers in the depths of our subconscious mind. And that's been the common theme even in yesterday's reading, episode 35, right? That you have to be very expectant, right? You have to believe, you have to do the work, you have to write it down, you have to affirm, but then you have to cross over now to be expectant of what it is that you want. Okay, I just want to bridge build a bridge between these stories so that we know we're all on the same page. Instant riches of mental insight and understanding. All right, so that's the next subheading. Instant riches of mental insight and understanding. At another point in my visit to Ireland, I went on a pony trek to the Gap of Dunlo in Killarney. Riding along this gap on a sturdy Kerry pony was a memorable thrill. During the last ice age, glaciers carved a path through the surrounding hills, the towering summit of Ricks, the changing shadows on the mountain tops, and the silence and solitude of the cliff-bound round combined to make an unforgettable impression of me. One of the companions on the ride was a young Englishman, Basil F. As we reached the middle stretch of the narrow gorge, he suffered an acute asthma attack. Fortunately, he was well prepared with a prescription inhaler as well as a hypodermic kit of adrenaline in case the attack became really severe. After the attack subsided, he confided that he had to deal with this practically every day, almost always around noon. It's no wonder I have asthma, he added. My father had it all his life. I was there when he died from an attack. It was terrible. Puzzled, I asked, didn't you mention earlier that you were an adopted child? Yes, that's right, he agreed. I was adopted as a baby. He did not seem to notice the contradiction in his thinking. He attributed his asthma to, genetically hereditary, right? While at the same time telling me he was adopted. That, of course, ruled out any hereditary source of his illness. Okay, that's actually quite important. A lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Now, how is mental and emotional disturbance released? Later during the week, Basil and I went aside and had a deeply personal talk. I confronted him with the contradiction, and I remarked on earlier. At first he argued, but then he admitted that he had hated his adopted father. Why was that? I asked, sympathetically. Did something happen to make you feel that way? Oh yes, indeed, he replied. I must have been 12 at the time. I did something to make him angry, something quite trivial, really. He told me, you are no son of mine. Oof. You are someone's cast-off bastard. I took you off the gutter and gave you a home, and this is how you repay my kindness. I was shocked. And that was the first time you learned you were adopted. Just so. His eyes glistened with tears. I hated him for that, but he was right. I was repaying his kindness with anger and resentment. I was acting exactly like what he had called me. Do you think it was kind of him to tell you something so important in a moment of anger? No, I suppose not, he said slowly, but it must have been a terrible trial, or he would not have done it. During his adolescent years, Basil tried to deny his anger and resentment towards his adopted father, but it remained suppressed in the deep recess of his mind. Being a negative and destructive emotion, it had to have an outlet sooner or later. When his adopted father died, he took on the old man's symptoms of asthma as a form of self-punishment for his sins. And guys, please remember, this is not his biological father. Therefore, there's no biological gene in him to be, asthmatic like his father, because this is his adopted father, right? So in social science, we call this concept socialization, right? Human beings get socialized into behaviors, attributes, and diseases, right? For example, obesity is much more of a socialization concept than it is a biological, genetic passed down to you type of thing. You are not obese, respectfully, because of a specific gene. You're obese because of the social habits around food in your life, in your household, from the time you're growing up, right? And scientists have proved this time and time again, right? That there are a lot of social norms that we pick up that actually start to program our subconscious mind, literally to a point where they can affect our health, right? You can get sick by always being around people who are sick, apart from them passing it on to you. But I'm saying psychologically, right, you become programmed that this is the way to live. This guy is now an old man, truly believed for a few moments in this conversation that his asthma is as bad as his father because he got it from his father. But his father adopted him. So there is no genetic link between the two, right? And that's not how asthma spreads, okay? Now, I explained, so he's saying, look, man, at the end of the day, there's this process where all these emotions and anger were so suppressed, right? In the recess of his mind, being negative and destructive emotion, it had to have an outlet sooner or later. So when his adopted father died, he took on the old man's symptoms of asthma as a form of self-punishment for his sins. And I explained to him fully. I then pointed out that he undoubtedly deeply resented the fact that he was born out of wedlock. There's no such a thing as an illegitimate child in God's eyes. The real illegitimate child is the one who thinks negatively and fails to conform to the golden rule of the law of love. He had developed the symptom because he felt he should suffer for a sense of unworthiness and self-rejection, plus his hatred and antagonism for the man who had adopted him. I pointed out that this adopted father had tried to do the best he could for him. He should work toward forgiving him for that anger, hurt, and outburst. Basil understood immediately. On the rest of the ride, he was quiet and thoughtful. When we returned to the hotel in Killarney, I gave him a copy of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind and wrote out a special prayer for him to use regularly every day. I also urged him to continue cooperating with his physician. This is the prayer I gave him. Quickly. I released my foster father and my real father and mother, known only in divine mind, to God completely. I forgive myself for harboring negative and destructive thoughts about myself and others. I resolve not only to do this anymore. Whenever negative thoughts come to me, I will immediately affirm, God's love fills my soul. I am relaxed, poised, serene, and calm. God guides my doctor in his ministrations to me. The breath of the Almighty gave me life, and I know God breathed into me the breath of life and made me a living soul with all the powers and attributes of God within me. I inhale the peace of God and exhale the love of God, and God flows through me as harmony, joy, love, peace, wholeness, and perfection. I suggested that he affirm these great truths up for about 5 minutes in the morning, afternoon, and night, and that he be careful never to deny what he affirms. When fearful thoughts are approaching symptoms come, he is to quietly inhale the peace of God and exhale the love of God. Not long after my return to California, I received a lovely letter from him. He had now been completely free of asthma attacks since our conversations. Truly, the explanation is oftentimes the cure. Riches of forgiveness. And I know this is not like the chapter where, woo, this is how you get money, this is how you get money, but this is important. This is personal development, right? Like unfortunately, the universal principles, the law of vibration, right? You attract what you are, okay? So don't zone out, because we're not talking about how to bag more cash, how to multiply your riches. You attract what you are. And what Murphy is doing in this chapter is like, look, man, by the time we get to the bank, you better be someone worthy of what it is that you want, right? So we gotta deal with these things. Like, for me, this is an incredible reminder that you only attract what you are, and therefore what you are is what you get. You don't like where you are, you don't like what you have right now. It is an important reflection of who you are. It's an honest take, right? It's between you, your path, your journey, right? But I'm just going to go through this word for word, chapter by chapter, because I think it's important. The riches of forgiveness. In England, I signed up for a tour of Shakespeare country, which still retains much of the flavor that must have influenced the life and the work of the immortal poet and playwright. During lunch at a historic inn in Warwick, I shared a table with a young woman who introduced herself as Margaret R. and mentioned that she was a hospital nurse. When I told her I wrote about the psychology and spiritual dimensions of people's problems, she told me that for the past several months she had suffered a persistent skin rash. She had consulted eminent dermatologists attached to the hospital where she worked, and they had prescribed various of lotions and ointments, but to no avail. I'm sure it must be psychosomatic, she added, but it is no help knowing that is it now. That depends, I replied. Experts on psychosomatic illnesses have said that the skin is when the inner and outer worlds meet. According to them, many skin conditions are caused by negative emotions such as hostility, resentment. In other words, the skin functions as a sort of an organ of elimination. The mental poisons that result from repressed emotions such as guilt, anxiety, remorse become translated into physical symptoms. There's another clinical psychologist that my partner loves. He grew up during the time of the World War, bombs and all that kind of stuff. And he actually has written a lot of research around people grow up under trauma who develop symptoms like IBS, like irritable bowel syndromes. There's research around children who are consciously anxious and anxiety, and they have a lot of tummy problems growing up as well. Right, so what he's saying is not out of the box, right? A lot of the times you think you're sick, but sometimes there is just so much stuff going on the inside of you that it has to come out, one way or another, right? Every natural law has a spiritual, correspondent law, right? So it's basically like trying to like bring this to light to this nurse that look, the mental poisons that result from repressed emotions such as guilt, anxiety, and remorse become translated into physical symptoms. Her face became thoughtful. That is a very interesting idea, she said. Will you be in England long? I should very much like to have a consultation with you, if possible. Certainly, I said. We picked a date and a time, and I gave her the address of the St. Emrons Hotel, Coxon Street, where I always stayed when visiting London. The cause of her itching and persistent skin rash. A few days later, Margaret and I sat in a private alcove of the hotel lobby. I was quite frank with her. I said I sensed she felt very guilty about something, and I believed she deserved and she believed she deserved punishment for it. A bottled up emotion repressed in the subconscious will often express itself in the form of a bodily symptom. If she confessed and cleansed her mind, the itching rash might well disappear. Looking away in embarrassment, she said, there is something. I am married, but my husband's work has always called him abroad. During the last 14 months, I've seen him only once on holiday. Yes, I prompted. That must be difficult for you. Oh, it is, she replied. And well, there is one of the doctors of the hospital. He was so sympathetic. We started seeing each other outside of work. Do I have to finish? It would be better if you did, I told her. Very well, her cheeks reddened. We have entered into a sexual relationship. She went on to say that she felt filled with remorse and guilt, and she was sure that her rash was God's way of punishing her for her sin. Self-forgiveness brings peace and release. I explained to Mark that God, for the life principle, never punishes, but people punish themselves by their misuse of the laws of the mind. For example, if you cut yourself, the life principle proceeds to call forth a supply of clothing agent, and subjective intelligence builds a bridge and forms new tissue so the body can heal itself. If you burn yourself, the life principle holds no grudge, but it seeks to restore your skin to normal by reducing the edema, giving you new skin and tissue. If you take something harmful, the life principle causes you to regurgitate it, vomit it out. It also seeks to restore you to health. The tendency of the life principle, God, is to heal, restore, and make you whole. As a nurse, Margaret understood all of this at once. Then I asked a pertinent question. Do you want to be free of this rash? Without hesitation, she said, yes, I do. Then I said, we have no problem. All you have to do is to stop doing what you're doing now, forgive yourself, and that is the end of your trouble. Before our consultation ended, Margaret had reached a decision to give up the relationship with the doctor and stop condemning herself. As I explained to her, self-condemnation, self-criticism are a destructive mental poison that infect the whole system. They rob you of a vitality, vigor, wholeness, and strength, and leave you in a physical and mental wreck. I pointed out that all she had to do was to get her thoughts to conform to the divine law of harmony and love. A new beginning is a new end. We prayed together, claiming that the divine love, peace, and harmony were now saturating her life, being that she was divinely guided and washed over by an overshadowing presence. During the long silence, we dealt with one thing only, the healing power of God's love. Then I reminded her of a great truth that is undeniably imprinted in the minds and the hearts of all. This one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, reaching forth unto the things which are before, I press toward the mark of the prize. Philippians 3, verse 13. The prize she sought was health, happiness, and peace of mind. At the end of our meditation, an inner light glowed in her eyes. She told me she felt something happen to her in the silence, and the rash had disappeared completely. We joined together, saying, Father, I thank thee, thou hast heard me, and I know thou hearest me always. Now, the riches of wisdom and understanding. While I was in London, an old friend came to visit me at St. Ames Hotel. She brought along her son, Edward, who was 12 at the time. At one point, she confided that Edward was terribly afraid of the dark. This had been going on for 2 years. I asked her if anything had happened 2 years earlier that might have given the child a great shock. The subconscious mind never forgets an experience. even if it is blocked from our conscious awareness. Why, yes, she said, we were living in Liverpool at the time, and the house caught fire during the night. My husband had to carry Edward out in his arms with his coat over him to protect him from the smoke. It was terrible. Did he try to smother me? Edward suddenly exclaimed. I couldn't breathe. Those two sentences gave us the key to the whole problem. Of course, the child was afraid of the dark, in the dark, as he believed his own father tried to murder him. He explained to Edward that in reality, his father had been trying to protect him and saved his life. We talked about the peril of the smoke in inhalation, which kills many more people in fires than flames do. Then said that he should radiate love to his father and mother. I counseled the boy and his mother, explaining that no matter what had happened in the past, it could be changed by now filling the subconscious mind with life-giving patterns. There is no more time or space in the mind. There is no time or space in the mind, and the lower is always subject to higher. Filling the boy's mind with the truths of God would crowd out of his mind everything unlike God. I gave the mother a prayer for the boy, and I asked Edward to use it before sleep. This is the prayer the mother used. My boy is God's son. God loves him and cares for him. God's peace fills his soul. He is poised, serene, calm, relaxed, and at ease. The joy of the Lord is his strength. The healing presence flows through him as harmony, peace, joy, love, and affection. God is, and his presence vitalizes, energizes, and restores his whole being to wholeness, beauty, perfection. He sleeps in peace and wakes up in joy. For Edward's use, she changed the hymn to me and had him repeat, I am God's son, and so on. On my return home, I was delighted to receive a letter from the mother. My boy is healed, she wrote. He had a vision in his sleep. A sage appeared in a dream and said to him, you are free, tell your mother. It was very vivid. This was the subconscious mind of the boy revealing to him his healing. I am the Lord, the Lord, who make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak unto him in a dream. Right. A meditation for an effective prosperity prayer. Meditate often by repeating the following prayer for prosperity. Thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou have good success. That's Joshua 1:8. These are all affirmations, guys, you can put together and just repeat, right? I now give a pattern of success and prosperity into the deeper mind within me, which is the law. I identify myself with the infinite source of supply. I listen to the still small voice of God within me. The inner voice leads, guides, governs all my activities. I am one with the abundance of God. I know and believe that there are new and better ways of conducting my business. My business's infinite intelligence reveals the new ways to me. I am growing in wisdom and understanding. My business is God's business. I am divinely prospered in all ways. Divine wisdom within me reveals the ways and means by which all affairs are adjusted in the right way immediately. The words of faith and conviction, and I now speak up, open all the necessary doors and avenues for my success and prosperity. I know that the Lord, the brackets law, will perfect that which concerneth me. My feet are kept in the perfect path because I am a child of the living God. And that is the end of the chapter. Now, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, we always have summary points to take. And today, I just want to quickly go through those points. These are just summary key points from the chapter to help us kind of like wrap up this episode. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like if you're watching on YouTube. Don't forget to share, even if you're listening on Spotify. Number one, resentment and hostility are mental poisons that rob you of vitality, enthusiasm, and energy. A severe eating disorder is often disguised in the form of committing suicide, a way of seeking revenge against someone. The answer is to open the mind and heart to the influx of divine love and to realize that others really do care and love you. Bring about the healing and transformation. Number two, when you begin to realize that you are an organ of God and that God had need of you where you are and that you are loved, needed, and wanted, a complete transformation takes place. You begin to release the riches of the infinite love as God's will and inner peace and abundance. Number 3, often blind faith will bring about remarkable results. Right? Whether the object of your faith be true or false, you will get results. A young boy who fired his imagination into a joyous expectancy and blind faith, believed that if he slept in the cell where St. Kevin was supposed to have slept, he would be healed. His subconscious accepted his belief and he was healed. True faith, number 4, true faith consists of belief that the infinite presence that created you always knows the process and functions of your body, and when you unite with your believing, results will follow. True faith is the combined use of your conscious and subconscious mind, scientifically directed. Number 5, when you pray for health, then health should spring forth speedily. Isaiah, if it does not, go to the doctor immediately and follow the injunction of the Bible, which says, honor a physician with the honor due unto him, for the Lord hath created him. That's in Ecclesiastes 38. Now, some people, number 6, experience excessive emotionalism at public healing meetings. The emotional hysteria often brings a temporary alleviation of pain. These hypnotic suggestions have only temporary effect. However, in true healing, your conscious and subconscious mind must agree, and you must believe in your heart in the infinite healing presence. Then the result is permanent, not temporary. When you pray for healing, complete forgiveness must take place of all guilt, peeves, and grudges. You know when you have forgiven others because there's no sting in your mind. Number 7, there's no power in sticks, stones, amulets, charms, or bones of saints. But if a person believes that the bone of a dog is that of a saint and that kissing it will bring a healing, it is not the bone of the dog that heals. It is the response of the person's subconscious mind to blind belief, because that's how powerful the mind can be. So if you can program yourself to believing that you deserve wealth, happiness, you will get it, right? Blind belief, right? But there's a better way, we know, conscious plus subconscious, not just blind belief. Number 8, negative and destructive emotions snell up into the subconscious mind and cause many diseases. When people feel guilty, when a person feels guilty, he feels he should be punished, but what he fails to see is that he's punishing himself. When the boy's adopted father died, he took on the dead man's symptoms as a form of self-punishment for his guilt. A wonderful prayer for forgiveness is this: I forgive myself for harboring negative and destructive thoughts about myself and others, and I resolve not to do this anymore. Whenever a negative thought comes to me, I will immediately affirm God's love fills my soul. Number 10, your skin is where the inner and outer worlds meet. Emotions of hostility, anger, suppressed rage, resentment may express themselves as a skin disease. Remorse and guilt, according to psychosomatic physicians, are the cause of many skin eruptions. All right? Remorse and guilt. Number 11, the life principle, God, never punishes. This presence always seeks to heal you and to make you whole. Self-condemnation, self-criticism are destructive mental poisons that send psychiatric pus all over your system, leaving you in a physical and mental wreck. Number 12, come to a decision, forget the past, saturate your mind with divine love, peace, and harmony. Realize that divine love dissolves everything unlike itself. Number 13, no matter what has happened in the past, you can change it now. No matter what has happened in the past, you can change it now. Fill your subconscious with life-giving patterns and thought, and you will erase and crowd out everything unlike God. Number 14, I can see in the background the sun rises here. It's about 6 a.m. and this is the last one. The meditation at the end of the chapter will help you improve your life, make your way prosperous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for today's reading. We just looked at chapter 4 of book number 5, Think Yourself Rich, episode 36 of the podcast, Shake My Hand. I will see you, the next time with an episode, right? It won't be quote unquote tomorrow, because remember, the podcast will be uploaded every day of the week. So Monday to Friday, there will be an episode. So see you for episode 37 very soon. Shake my hand, 365. Peace.